Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Autogefühl with me, AJ. Today, I'm here in Hamburg on this beautiful sunny day, and next to me is a very bright car. That is the all-new VW Polo. Now, we're no stranger to this car. We've covered this on several occasions. First of all, with Brian at the world premiere event of this car. Then Thomas took an in-depth look in the studio with product experts from Volkswagen to get all the details about all the new changes in the technology and the engineering that has gone into this car. Plus, if you were one of the lucky few who were able to come and attend the Autogefühl community meeting, then you for sure know all about this car already, because you had an exclusive chance to get a sneak peek at this car, talk to the product experts, sit inside, touch it, feel it, everything. But we've never been able to drive it so far, and that's where it changes today. So join me as I test this car on road to see what it's got. Are you interested? Come on, let's go. First and foremost, what you notice with the new VW Polo is just how much bigger it is. In fact, the Polo is now 7 centimeters wider than the predecessor. And that is accentuated by this lip all the way running down the front of the grille. Now, even though this is not part of the hood, it looks like that, and it kind of gives this clamshell effect. We have the optional LED lights. This is an option even on the R line, but I think it's really nice. This line, well, on the comment section, I've seen that some people like it, they don't like it. It's a bit too undefined, it's a little bit wiggly. I personally don't really mind, and looks are always subjective. Let us know what you think. The Polo is now 4.05 meters long. That's about 8 centimeters longer than the predecessor. So now 13 feet 3 inches. And not only that, the wheelbase has been stretched by 5 centimeters. So the resultant of the longer wheelbase as well as the wider track makes this car a lot more planted and stable on the highway, which we will see soon enough. As we continue down the side, well, there's a very nice, interesting design line which starts in the front, continues all the way back to the rear of the car. And while we're here, I think this C-pillar, the way it slopes down, is very similar to the Golf. So in that way, I think the Polo is very grown up. And there's one more interesting point. If you look down here in the rear wheel, you'll notice that there are drum brakes. Even in 2017 on a Volkswagen, interesting. But the reason is, for a car of this size and this weight, you don't really need a disc brake in the rear. So for engines with less than 95 horsepower, there's only a drum brake. And of course, if you pick one with just more than 95, so the 115 or the 150 or even the GTI, those will definitely have disc brakes at the back. On our test car, we have very shiny, bright 17-inch alloy wheels. Here at the back of the new Polo, at the top we have a very little spoiler which kind of makes the car seem a lot more dynamic. If you choose the R line, then of course you get a whole host of body kit attachments, including an extended spoiler, a large rear diffuser with, unfortunately, fake exhausts, a more aggressive bumper in the front, and some side skirts. But here on our model, you get a very humble looking rear spoiler, the optional rear LED lights, which in my opinion, this kind of looks like a pistol. What do you guys think? Doesn't it? They have different names for this, but to me, it kind of looks like a gun. But anyway, down here you have the Polo logo. Towards the center you have the VW logo, which if you press, doubles as the latch for the trunk. Speaking of the hatch, there's a large center line which gives more emphasis to the width of the car. And over down here, the parking sensors. And interestingly, which I also noticed on the Ibiza, there's quite a large extension of the rear bumper. The lip is fairly large and juts out, and I guess it's just a design element, but I can imagine when you're trying to load heavy items, you're going to have to, cross over this hurdle, so to speak, to load your things, and there's more scope for hitting this bumper and damaging it. But anyway, I guess it's not really a big deal. And down here, well, it's just a bumper. There's not a diffuser. There's no fake exhausts. The exhausts are tucked away in the bottom. Let's open the hatch and take a look inside the trunk. Whoa, that's quite a lot of space. 351 liters to be exact. And look at the size. I mean, it's very rectangular. There's very little obstructions from the wheel arches or anything like that. So it's very usable. Just to give you guys an idea, here is a standard cabin baggage, regular size. I mean, there's plenty more space to fit a couple more suitcases. You can stack up another one on top of this. So for this class, this MQB A0 platform is really fantastic. Of course, you can remove the partial shelf out of the way, like so. And you can also flip the seats down. There are switches on the side, and they fold in a 60-40 fashion. They fall relatively flat, but you don't have any obstructions. It's a very level loading bay, so you can fit larger items inside as well. Let's check out the key, and as you can see really quick over here, it says energetic orange metallic, so that's the color we have. 1 liter TSI, 70 kilowatts, that's the 95 horsepower, 7-speed DSG. And this is the key itself, very standard, nothing fancy here, so on and so forth. And we do not have keyless entry, so we unlock. The mirror folds out automatically, and as you can also see, and we'll come to this later on of course, but this car has the blind spot monitoring. Anyway, let's look inside. The door opens fairly wide. The door is also quite large. It gives you a very big opening to the interior. Unfortunately, you know, materials up here are still a bit hard and they sound a bit hollow, and it doesn't get any better as you go further down, so the entire door is pretty much the same material. The only saving grace is this padded armrest for your elbow, which is always a welcome change, but I was hoping at least this would also be a little bit padded, considering, hey, this is the Polo and not the Ibiza. But apart from that, we have large door bins to store your water bottles. Looking inside the car, well, we saw just the sheer huge volume of all of the customization options. So in our test car, I think it's a little bit too black. I personally wouldn't have spec'd it this way, but of course we have different choices. In our seats we have fake leather on the outside with the fabric in the middle, with these interesting stripes on the sides. And again, on the dashboard we have a shiny brushed aluminium metal effect plastic inlay, which goes all the way across the dashboard. Enough said, let's hop inside and let's take a closer look. Getting inside is fairly comfortable, it's very easy. Thanks to the extended wheelbase and the wider track, there's a lot more interior space now. I mean, this car really feels like a larger car from the segment above. The seats are fairly wide, fairly comfortable, even though I'm a fairly wide guy. The seat can be adjusted for height as well, as Thomas likes to say, pump it up, pump it down. Does he say that? I don't know. But anyway, I made it up. You can also adjust the reclining, so with the manual control on the side. Even lumbar support can be adjusted. Of course, the seat can be slid forward and backwards. Not only that, the steering wheel column can also be adjusted for height and reach. So overall, finding a comfortable seating position, no matter how big or small you are, is a breeze in the new Polo. Sitting inside the new Polo, it feels really fresh. It feels like a new car, and it is a new car, and it's good to see that. The dashboard is very wide, but again, it's very familiar. It still has the same shapes that we're used to from the VW family. Materials up here are nice and soft, and again, this inlay that sweeps all the way across the dashboard really sets it apart. It makes it much more appealing and breaks up the monotony. Of course, this is a much more subtle color, but if you have one of the really bright colors, I think it helps it stand out. Materials over here as well are soft, so yes, the doors I honestly think could have been better, but at least the dashboard, what you touch here, is soft. Plastics here are also a bit hard. There are also plenty of storage spaces, for example, this glove box, which has got plenty of space and space for the navigation SD cards and things like that over there. And over here there is a inductive charger for your phone and some beverage holders as well. One of the biggest talking points of the new VW Polo is the digital dashboard, which is the screen which goes across the instrument cluster. Unfortunately, in our test car, we do not have that, but I think it's a good way to test the car without it. In case you are really interested in this option, make sure you watch Thomas's review, the static review of the VW Polo. There, he talks with the product expert, and then they explain all the details and all the different features of the digital dashboard. Anyway, on our car, we have an analog tachometer on the left with the temperature gauge, a analog speedometer with the fuel gauge on the right. In the middle, we have a screen which gives us a lot of useful information, such as assistance systems, of which there are a lot now. You have blind spot monitoring with the indicators on the rear view mirrors. You have rear traffic alert, so it monitors the cars coming from either side, from behind you. And front assist. Thanks to the adaptive cruise control, there is a radar sensor in the front. And not only can it be used just to operate the adaptive cruise control, but it can also help when things in case of emergency braking at slow city speeds. And that adaptive cruise control is controlled by the buttons over here to set and reset. And then you can change the distance that you want to keep with the car in the front or the speed that you want to maintain with these buttons. Of course, this is all stuff that we've seen. It's very common and works really well anyway, so there's no need to fix something that isn't broken. Since we have the DSG, the steering wheel also gets paddle shifters behind them. You have the standard light stock on the left for the indicators and the windshield wiping stock on the right-hand side. Now let's take a look at the infotainment system. There are a couple different options when it comes to this, including an 8-inch touchscreen or a 6.5. And let's take a look at hours. So when it's off, you have different options for the clock as a screensaver. And when you turn it on, you can go to the menu, and there's a lot of interesting things. Radio, media, yeah, you guys already know that. Let's not spend time on that. CarNet, for example, is something which is really interesting. So you can either use, you can tether your hotspot from your phone, or you can insert a SIM card into the car, and you can get connectivity that way. And this will give you access to things like news, for example. It's taking a bit of time. I'll give it a couple more seconds. Nope. Let's go back. Oh, there we go. So you get your news feed in case you're interested in reading some news. Maybe perhaps your co-passenger, you shouldn't be reading the news when you're driving. Weather updates for not just your current location, but it will also look at the weather on your route that you're traveling through the GPS, and it will make corrections and suggestions if there's a storm that you're going into, so on and so forth. Apart from that, you have points of interest. You can update your maps. You can also set routes and with stops along the way. You can also check out petrol stations on your route, and they will also give you not only the distance to these petrol stations, but also the current price for the fuel at these stations as well. So you can check out, hey, where can I get the best deal? It's a bit slow, so to save time, I'm just going to cancel that for now. Apart from that, you have App Connect, which lets you connect your phone and mirror it using Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, or MirrorLink, which is good, but again, nothing new here. We've seen this plenty of times before. Telephone features, vehicle information, so tire pressure loss, things like that. Lots of different settings for your stability program, parking systems, so on and so forth. Navigation. Navigation is very good. This system is something that we're used to from before, so it's nothing to write home about, but it works well. The screen is very nice. It gives you commands for your exits and where to make turns on your instrument cluster as well. Traffic updates, since you have a connectivity, and images and things like that. We have the climate control unit here. Again, very standard, dual zones in this case, seat heaters as well, optional of course, vent controls and temperature, speed, things like that. But more importantly, down here we have a inductive charging port to drop your phone and it charges inductively. A couple USB ports over here. And over here we have the 7-speed DSG, which is an option in this 95 horsepower 1 liter TSI engine that we're driving. The auto shut off for that, engine on off, driving mode selector. This is the parking assist, so this will actually parallel park or perpendicular park for you. It does the steering. All you have to do is shift it into reverse and drive and give it gas or brake, which again is nothing new, but it's great to see cars in this segment having it. You have a couple beverage holders down here, 12-volt power socket, a manual handbrake, another little compartment down here, a fairly small center armrest with a fairly shallow and inclined cubby hole underneath. But let's give it the shake test. Yeah, it doesn't really budge. Really solid. This has also got a really nice weight to it and can be extended back and forth. Let's check out the back seat. Well, the door opens fairly wide. I don't think it's, doesn't open too wide, but I think it's a little bit better than the Ibiza. I'm not sure if that's really true, but as far as I remember, I felt that the rear door in the Ibiza was a little bit tight. Anyway, the opening is also fairly large. The door materials are unfortunately hard, even for the armrest. So, Anyway, let's hop inside. Getting inside is actually, again, very comfortable, very easy. I didn't have to stoop down too low, and there's plenty of clearance for the door. I am 5'8", or 1.7 meters. And this seat is set to my driving position. As you can see, there's plenty of knee room, and even though the seat in the front is in the downward position, I have still a lot of space to slide my feet under the front chair, the front seat. So there's plenty of room. Although I must say, it feels quite dark in here, but that's really down to you. I would probably not pick just full black interiors, and you also get the optional panoramic roof. I think definitely if you choose some lighter colors in the upholstery and the panoramic roof, it will really make the car feel really bright and really nice. Just to give you an idea of the middle seat, let me sit over here. Well, the bench is not too bad, it's not raised. There is a central transmission tunnel which eats up into your legroom, but thanks to the fairly wide footwells, your passengers should not have a problem sharing it with you. But what I do notice is, because of the way the seat is textured or contoured, it's contoured in a very two-seater configuration. So the middle seat, the seat back is not the most comfortable to sit in. But I think smaller children for shorter periods of time should have no problem at all. Over here we have a really shiny red car. This is the Beats Edition special trim level for this car. You can get this audio system optional in all the other models if you want, but this specific Beats trim level also has things like the stripes and a very special interior as well. Now this is the Beats Edition. It has this little logo on the side, which is of course the Beats logo. And then the interior is also pretty special. I think because of the usage of the light colors in the bottom of the bottom part of the interiors, like down here or on the sides of the seats, it kind of makes the car feel a lot more bright and larger. And there's so many interesting different patterns and textures on the seat. And this is faux leather or leatherette. So that's obviously a much more sustainable way to do this instead of having real leather. And you can also save that little bit of money. These are always more durable and cheaper to make. And you have this nice dash of color right across the middle of the dashboard, which is very similar to the color of the exterior. Not exactly the same. And this is also a little bit of a matte finish. But overall, I can certainly find myself sitting in this car in this interior scheme and driving for hours and hours and still being very refreshed and very happy to be there. Look at all these shiny colors and these really fun names as well. So energetic orange, this is the color of the car that we're testing today. And you also see the flash red for the Beats Edition that we were just checking out earlier. There's some regular stuff, pure white, just black. And there's also some more metallic colors like honey yellow, metallic, ivory silver, white silver metallic, So there's 14 different choices to choose from. And as we go further towards this side, you can see some of the interior trim and seating upholstery options. You have some fabric upholstery over here with some different kinds of textures. And of course, the colors that you can pair with that. And here we have some more nice patterns on the seats. Like for example, this is the 2-tracks energetic orange over here. Similar patterns over here. And this is for the R line, so you have some, you have like a fake suede material over here and some fabric over there. Plenty of more options, including leatherette, again like the one in the Beats edition, and you have the Beats logo. So plenty of options. I mean, if you really think about it, all the different permutations and combinations that you can make with all of these, I don't think you'll find two Polos that look exactly the same. The new Polo comes with a range of petrol, diesel, and even a CNG engine option. It starts off with the 1-liter naturally aspirated MPI engine, which makes either 65 or 75 horsepower. This comes with a 5-speed manual. Then you have the 1-liter TSI engine, like the one here we have. This makes either 95 horsepower, like this one, or 115 horsepower. Both of these engines, you get the option of the 7-speed DSG. Then there is the 1.5 Evo engine, which makes 150 horsepower, and that's a pretty interesting engine. It has active cylinder management, variable geometry turbo, things like that. And I drove that car on the Ibiza, which consequently is on the same platform as well. So if you want to get an idea of how that engine behaves with this platform, check out that review as well. And finally, of course, there is the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder petrol GTI engine, which will make 200 horsepower. Then, in terms of diesel, there's the 1.6-liter diesel, and the bigger diesel gets the DSG as well. And also, there is the 1-liter TGI, which is the CNG-powered engine. And not only is it a CNG, it's a bivalent engine, so you can run it on petrol as well. And there's a full 40-liter petrol tank as well, with 2 additional CNG tanks mounted below the rear. So altogether, you get a range with over 1,000 kilometers. Finally, we're driving the new VW Polo. Like I said earlier, we've had the chance to really examine this car at the world premiere event. Thomas has discussed it in detail with all of the product experts, and if you're part of the Autogefühl friends and the Autogefühl community meeting at Wolfsburg, you also got the chance to really check out this car in and out. But now, on the road, what is it like? Well, first impressions? I can say it's familiar, but at the same time, it's refreshing. And you're going to hear this a lot, I'm sure, from other journalists as well, but it does feel grown up. It really does. And I say that because of its mannerisms. Now, because it's wider, the track of the wheels are also wider. So that means that there's a lot more, the car has a lot more grip, it's very planted. The actual size, the diameter of the wheels themselves have also increased on average. So that also means that the wheels are a lot more capable of handling undulations on the road, as well as the wheelbase being extended has also made this car very stable and very, very composed when we go around corners, which we will soon see once we get out of this little village over here. But overall, it's not just the driving dynamics which have changed. There's a whole host of safety features and the new infotainment systems, as well as the digital dashboard, should you go for them. But we'll come to that later on. Let's start with the seats. These seats are pretty good. I wouldn't say they're exceptional, nor do I find any faults with them. I think a little bit wider would have been okay. When I first sat in them, they seemed okay, but now that I've been driving for quite a while, the side bolstering is a bit steep for my taste, but I think that's something you can get used to. And again, they're completely adjustable for height and reclining the back, lumbar support, and things like that, so you can very easily find a very comfortable seating position. Apart from that, the steering wheel column also can be fully adjusted, so you can pull it in and out, move it up and down, and you can find a very comfortable seating position. Talking about seating position, well, I have the seat all the way down because I like to sit lower in the car. And at this height, there's a lot of visibility. Thanks to the increased dimensions of the car, it feels a lot more spacious, and it is. It's so much bigger on the inside than the previous version. And the windshield in the front is also really wide and large, and it comes fairly high, so your outward visibility is really excellent. Same goes for visibility out the side. Thanks to these tall windows, you can really see your surroundings pretty well. Should you need to check exactly what's behind you, you know, the B pillar is a bit obtrusive. If you turn your head perpendicular to the left, you kind of end up just getting your view blocked. But the view out the back is also significantly improved thanks to the larger windscreen now. I'm driving the three-cylinder turbocharged 1-liter TSI engine, which makes 95 horsepower. I have this mated with a 7-speed DSG. This engine, well, it is a 3-cylinder, so you can feel it, you can hear it, but on the whole, you know, I think for a car of this size, 95 horsepower is okay. And the DSG, yeah, it doesn't really respond as quickly as, you know, having a manual gearbox, but all in all, I think this combination is fairly good. If you don't want to spend so much money, I would still say, you know, for a Polo, I think getting a manual is totally all right. You don't have to worry too much about it. Speaking of the DSG, you have several driving modes, which you can access with this button down here. You have Eco, Normal, Sport, and Individual. I'm going to keep it in Sport for a while. Let's see how it goes. Here, in Sports mode, the throttle response is sharpened, so you get a little bit quicker responses. The gearbox holds a lower gear for a higher time, so that the revs are always in the heart of the power band, so the turbochargers are spooled up and you get instant power and torque as and when you need it. If you go to Eco mode, then here it's the other way around, basically. The engine holds a lower RPM, the gearbox shifts up as soon as possible, and it maintains a low throttle response so that you don't have sudden jerky motions and you don't end up shifting down unnecessarily. So you get much slower responses, but this results in a much more smoother and more efficient way of driving. And normal mode, well, it's basically the in-between. It takes a little bit of sportiness when you need it. It takes the eco whenever you can afford to go slow and not have to worry about overtaking or things like that. But I like to keep it in sport. So let's keep it in sport and let's see how it goes. In terms of sporty dynamics, yeah, I was saying earlier, because of the wheel size and the wheelbase and the track, it is very sturdy. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate this right now, but we'll be getting out onto some more twisty country roads and we'll try it out there. But I've been driving this car already for quite a while and it is very composed. However, the steering somehow I'm still not so thrilled with. I'm sad to say that. Let me just zoom in to the navigation. There we go. I drove the Ibiza FR, as you guys hopefully know. You've seen my video. If you haven't, make sure you check it out. And in that car, the steering wheel I felt was much smaller. And because it's smaller, even though it was not necessarily a quicker rack, you know, it felt a lot more agile. It felt a lot more nimble. You could really flick the car around. And it was the FR trim, so it means that the suspension was a little bit lower. So yeah, I can't really benchmark that with this. I would have to drive the R-Line, which unfortunately at this event we don't have. So with this regular version, the steering wheel I think is a bit too large. I would have liked it to be smaller. I think that would also suit the personality of this car a little bit more. You know, it's a Polo, but this is kind of, you know, this is the standard wheel. I asked one of the product managers back at the event, and I said, hey, you know, I think the wheel is a little bit larger. I think, you know, it could be a bit smaller. Is the R-Line wheel a bit smaller? He's like, no, they're all the same size. So that is probably one small thing that is probably a personal taste, matter of personal taste, but I would have liked it to be a little bit smaller. But anyway, there's a lot of safety features as well. There's blind spot monitoring. adaptive cruise control, there is lane departure warning, so a whole host of features which, again, we've seen in this segment, especially with the sibling, the Ibiza, it was all there before. And yeah, in terms of engine, well, because this is the 95 horsepower engine, this doesn't get a rear disc brake, and we'll try to see if I can find an empty space to test the braking capacity of the disc and drum combination. But I've been kind of pushing it every now and then off camera before we started, and I think it was doing pretty well. You know, when the product expert also said you don't need disc brakes in the back for a car of this size and for an engine which is not that powerful, and I agree with him. The savings that you get from, you know, things like this can be put into things like a better infotainment system, you know, better safety features, which I think is much more useful and much better money spent. The navigation screen is very large. You get different choices of the infotainment system, 6.5 inches or 8 inches. You can also have navigation commands here. If you don't have the digital dashboard, you can still get them on the front over here. But it's very responsive. The screen can be moved around. It's still a touch screen even when you're driving. You can zoom in and out really easily by pinching. But if you're like me and you don't like pinching for zooming, you have the knob on the left or on the right hand side, which will do that for you. And depending on the menu, this knob is also used for different actions. So this system is very useful. It's very similar to a lot of the other systems that we've seen. So again, familiar but refreshing. That's what I can say. All right, now let's get up onto the Autobahn and see how the Polo does on open roads and at high speeds. So I'm just going to pull up over here and we're going to get on our way back up into Hamburg. Now the Polo that I'm driving just has the standard suspension, and I can already tell you that while it is fairly balanced, it is a little bit on the stiffer side. So we'll see how that plays out once we're on the highway. But anyway, we can also check the acceleration, and we'll see if 95 horsepower is good enough, yes or no. So let's test 50. Let's test 50 to 130. Okay. Ready? 3, 2. I'm going to put it into second gear, and then here we go. All right, well, that took a fair bit of time, I think, but overall, not a bad performance from, again, a 3-cylinder, but I don't know if you guys could hear. You could definitely hear the turbo, you could definitely hear the whining and the thrum of the 3-cylinder, which is, you know, such a dead giveaway that it's a 3-cylinder engine. But personally, I don't really mind. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad sound. Of course, you know, a 4-cylinder would sound better, but I think it's okay. Anyway, the suspension, well, the suspension is still a little bit, I think a little bit on the stiffer side. Again, because I'm not driving the R-Line, or it's not the Polo GTI, it's just the regular one. I was expecting it to be a little bit more supple, but it's not terrible, but you can see that we're kind of bouncing around a little bit on the highway. Yes, this stretch of the Autobahn is perhaps not the most smoothest, but anyway, that's something to keep in mind. If a very soft, supple ride is what you're after, I think you should take the Polo out on a test drive on some bumpy highways near your house, and then see if it's something that really would bother you later on. Apart from that, noise insulation, wind insulation, it's okay. It's not fantastic. In fact, when I drove the Ibiza, I also had the same impression that it was a little bit on the louder side. Again, in this class, at this price point, it's not going to be incredibly, you know, quiet and hushed, but it's still, I would say, about as loud and as well insulated as the Ibiza. And I'm comparing these two because I think it's a very important comparison to make, because the Ibiza is always a little bit cheaper than the Polo, and apart from the way it looks, a lot of the mechanical components are very similar. Of course, some options are not available in the Ibiza, like the digital dashboard, but even the Ibiza gets the adaptive cruise control, rear view camera, park assist, all these things as well. So if you're gonna buy a Polo without a digital dashboard, you know, and you don't mind the way the Ibiza looks, I would say you might want to save that few €1,000 and go for that, because honestly, this is a good car. On its own, Polo's a good car, it always has been. But plastics on the door, same as the Ibiza. The sound insulation, pretty much the same as the Ibiza. So I don't really see, you know, too much of where all the extra money is going to. Perhaps, you know, once we drive this car further, or if we do a second test in a different scenario, we can find more benefits. But anyway, let's just check the mileage that we're getting right now. Well, it says average consumption is about 8 liters for 100 kilometers, but this is not a realistic figure because we haven't been driving for too long. Now the 95 horsepower 1 liter MPFI, or sorry, the TSI, rather, I got confused, is a pretty frugal engine, and we know this already. So you can expect lower numbers, and of course a lot of the mileage you get has a lot to do with the way you drive. There we go. That was a bit of a mouthful. So especially for turbocharged engines, especially 3-cylinder turbocharged engines, you know, if you drive with a heavy foot, you're always shifting down a lot, things like that, you're definitely not going to get that much of mileage. Let's just put it into eco mode, and let's put it all the way in the 7th gear, and let's just check the consumption live. Yeah, so it's at this rate, at this speed, it's fairly frugal. We're getting about 3 liters for 100 kilometers, depending on the throttle position. Even if it's 4, I think, you know, you can expect that an average, if you drive at this speed for about 45 minutes, this will drop further. Now let's set the adaptive cruise control. Simple button over here. It has set my speed to 81 kilometers per hour. I can increase that very easily with the switches over here on the steering wheel, and I can also set the amount of distance I want to maintain with the car in the front, and voila, I don't have to worry about it. I just let my foot off both the gas and the brake, and if I pull out to overtake, like I will demonstrate right now, the car speeds up by itself until it reaches the limit I have specified, and it will hold it there. And if I want to come back, which I will also demonstrate now, it will slow down once I pull back inside and maintain the speed that it is set to. So I think an adaptive cruise control system is something that you should go for. A standard cruise control, yes, it does the job, you know, it does at least 80% of the job, but I think it's so important on long distances. If you're driving with some friends and there's music, there's always distractions, and there's prone to making some mistakes, and once you're driving using cruise control, you kind of, you don't pay as much attention as you should be. So an adaptive cruise control system that way will really help you out. It will make it a lot more safer. Apart from that, let's see. I think overall, I think the Polo is a good car. The price point, you know, you have to really check it out. If you know, if you don't want to spend so much, but you want this MQB A0 and you want the similar engines and similar gearboxes, you should definitely check out the Ibiza as well. Let us know, what do you guys prefer? Is it the Polo or is it the Ibiza? Put it down in the comments below. The base variant for the new VW Polo with the 14-inch steel wheels and the trend line trim level starts at around €13,000 here in Germany. If you upgrade to the comfort line and throw in some options like LED lights, the 8-inch touchscreen and things like that, you're looking at something over €15,500. Of course, the beats and the Highline are around 17,000 and 18,000 euros respectively. But even there's still always the chance to personalize with all these various seat options and color options and wheel options, and upgrading to LED lights and the infotainment systems will drive the price even higher. But overall, I think for a Volkswagen Polo, you can expect to get good quality, and there's always a little bit of premium that you do pay as compared to, for example, the Seat Ibiza. In terms of the way it looks, well, looks are always subjective. I personally think it's good, but I think I prefer the way the Seat looks, but that's just my opinion. And overall, I think it's a really good car. It has a lot of safety features like adaptive cruise control, lane departure warning, cross-traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, things like that. And at the same time, it's very dynamic, it's very safe and stable thanks to the wider track, longer wheelbase, and overall is a very confident car. Let us know what you think and put your comments down below.